Chosen one, a critical message you need today. The air in the room feels heavy right now, doesn't it? The whole world is spinning 1,000 miles an hour, and you're just standing still in the silence, waiting for a sign, a whisper. You're exhausted from carrying a weight you can't even name. Have you ever felt that invisible gravity pulling you down? I want to hear your real story in the comments below, because this space is for honest conversations. You lie awake. The clock on the bedside table blurs into a neon glare. 3 a.m. Again. It's always at this hour when the silence gets incredibly loud, when the world outside your window goes completely still, and the only thing left is the echo of your own thoughts bouncing off the walls of your mind. People talk about being called. They use big, shiny words. Purpose, destiny, the chosen one. They make it sound like a victory lap under falling confetti. But nobody tells you about the profound, aching loneliness of it all. They don't mention how being chosen usually means being set apart, isolated, misunderstood. You look at the people around you. They seem to glide through life with a casual ease. They worry about the weekend plans. They stress over normal, everyday things. But you walk around with this unspoken urgency burning a hole in your chest, a nagging intuition that there is something massive you are supposed to be doing, and yet you feel entirely stuck, trapped in a bleak waiting room while the universe seemingly passes you by. You ask for direction. You beg for it. Actually, you cast your gaze upward in the quiet moments of your morning commute, gripping the cold steering wheel, asking for just one clear sign. A neon billboard in the sky. A booming voice. Anything. Instead, you get the hum of the air conditioner. You get the rhythmic squeak of the windshield wipers. You get absolute, hollow silence. That silence is terrifying. It makes you second-guess everything you thought you knew. It makes you wonder if you made the whole thing up in your head. Maybe you aren't meant for anything greater. Maybe the calling you felt in your bones was just a fleeting delusion. Imposter syndrome creeps in like ice water under the door, slowly soaking into the floorboards of your confidence. It's completely exhausting to care so deeply when the path forward is wrapped in thick, impenetrable fog. You're pouring your energy into the void. You're trying to hold on to faith when the physical evidence of your own 2 eyes tells you to just give up and be normal. You're doing the right things. You're trying to be a good person. You're showing up day after day, even when your soul feels scraped completely hollow. But the breaking point feels dangerously close. You can feel it in the way you snap at minor inconveniences. You feel it in the heavy, rattling sighs that escape your lungs before you even realize you're breathing. You are holding up a crumbling bridge, and your arms are shaking violently. It takes a physical toll, the spiritual weighting. You can feel it in the tight, grinding coil of your jaw, in the way your shoulders reside permanently near your ears, bracing for an impact you can't predict. Your body is keeping the score of a game you don't even know the rules to. You watch other people build their lives like stacking neat wooden blocks. A house, a comfortable promotion, a perfectly curated vacation. Their foundations look so incredibly solid. Yours feels like it's built on shifting tectonic plates. Whenever you try to settle down and just be normal, the ground trembles. It reminds you that you are not meant to stay here. You are a nomad of the spirit, wandering a vast, dry desert with only the faintest promise of an oasis somewhere over the horizon. The thirst for answers is maddening. There's a very specific kind of grief that comes with a delayed promise. It's a quiet, invisible mourning. You grieve the time slipping through your fingers like fine sand. You mourn the peace of mind you traded in for this relentless pursuit of a higher truth. Sometimes you just want to hand the ticket back. You want to look up and tell whatever higher power is out there that they picked the wrong person. Let someone else carry this heavy fire. Let someone else decipher the strange whispers in the wind. You just want to rest, but you can't. That's the tragedy and the brutal beauty of the mark you carry. You can try to ignore it. You can drown out with cheap entertainment, scrolling mindlessly through glowing screens in the dark until your eyes burn and blur. You can bury it under a mountain of frantic busy work. It always comes back. It surfaces when you're mindlessly washing the dishes. It taps you on the shoulder in the blinding fluorescent light of the grocery store aisle. This undeniable, heavy truth. There is a message trying to reach you, a frequency that you are uniquely tuned to receive. But the static of the modern world is deafening. We are bombarded by a million flashing lights and screaming headlines, all demanding our immediate panic. How do you hear the gentle, urgent voice of the divine over the roaring machinery of modern life? You feel like a broken radio antenna picking up scattered fragments of a broadcast. A word here, a strange feeling there, a sudden, unexplained urge to drive down a different road. But the full picture remains stubbornly, painfully out of focus. This is a descent, the valley of the shadow. It's the part of the journey that gets glossed over in the movies, reduced to a quick 15-second montage with sad music. But you are living it in real time, second by agonizing second, minute by minute. You sit in the dark, watching the headlights of passing cars sweep across your bedroom wall, like passing ghosts. You wonder if the urgent message you've been desperately waiting for has already been delivered, and you are just too broken, too distracted, or too tired to see it. The fear of missing your cue is a heavy iron chain. It binds you to a state of perpetual anxiety. You analyze every coincidence, trying to wring meaning out of random chance. You are so desperate for a breakthrough that you're practically willing to manufacture one yourself. But deep down, beneath the panic and the bone-deep fatigue, you know the absolute truth. You can't force the sunrise. You can only sit in the dark and wait for the earth to turn. And right now, the dark is pitch black. The cold is seeping deep into your bones. The feeling of being completely, utterly alone is overwhelming. You are a solitary watchman on a high wall, staring out into the endless abyss, waiting for a flare that feels like it will never come. But then, a subtle change happens. You start to realize something profound about the silence. What if it isn't empty at all? What if it's just incredibly dense? Think about a massive, ancient forest right before a violent storm breaks. The wind dies down completely. The air stops moving. The birds stop singing. The insects go dead quiet. If you were suddenly dropped into those woods, you might think the place was lifeless. You might think nature had abandoned it. But that silence isn't an absence of life. It's the gathering of immense atmospheric pressure. It's the physical holding of breath before a massive, earth-shaking release of energy. You are not sitting forgotten in a waiting room. You are standing in the pressure chamber. We have this deeply flawed human assumption that if God, or the universe, or however you define the divine, wants our attention, it will come through a megaphone. We expect the burning bush. We expect the heavens to rip open with dramatic, cinematic flair, handing us a clearly written itinerary for our lives. But absolute power doesn't need to shout. It whispers. Imagine a master luthier carving a violin from a raw, heavy block of wood. If the wood had a consciousness, all it would know is a sharp, terrifying bite of the steel blade. It would feel pieces of itself being violently stripped away, falling to the floor in useless curls. It would feel hollowed out, scraped thin, completely exposed and vulnerable to the cold air. The wood would scream, asking why it was being destroyed. It would beg for the relentless cutting to stop. But the master craftsman knows exactly what he is doing. He isn't destroying the wood. He is painstakingly removing everything that isn't the instrument. He has to hollow it out, because if it remains a solid, untouched block, it can never resonate. It can never amplify a sound. It will just be a heavy, dull piece of timber sitting silently on a dusty workbench. You are feeling the blade. You are feeling the agonizing hollowing out of your ego, your plans, your neat little human timelines. That deep, aching emptiness you feel inside isn't a void where your purpose used to be. It's the acoustic chamber being meticulously carved out within your very soul. You are being prepared to hold a frequency that would completely shatter a lesser vessel. When you look at it through that lens, the maddening delay makes terrifying sense. The message you are meant to carry, the calling you are meant to step into, isn't some trivial, everyday task. It's incredibly heavy. It's vital. If you were handed that immense responsibility before you were hollowed out, before you were completely stripped of your need for constant validation and worldly applause, it would crush you into dust. The waiting isn't a punishment. It is profound, calculated protection. God is speaking to you right now, but the language isn't English. It isn't words on a page. The language is the very tension you feel tightening in your chest. Think about the strings on that newly carved violin. To make music, they cannot be loose and comfortable. A loose string produces a flat, lifeless thud. To sing, to hit the exact right harmonic pitch and bring tears to a crowded room, the string must be pulled impossibly tight. It must be stretched almost to its absolute breaking point, secured firmly on both ends, suspended in agonizing, vibrating tension. That unbearable pulling you feel, that severe friction between where you are and where you know you are supposed to be, you are being tuned. You aren't failing at life just because you haven't arrived at an arbitrary finish line. The pressure is the entire point. The friction is the point. The overwhelming feeling of being entirely out of place in this shallow, fast-paced world is exactly the calibration required for what comes next. You were never meant to fit in seamlessly with the crowd. A tuning fork doesn't blend in. It disrupts the surrounding noise and forces everything else in the room to align with a singular, pure note. But to strike that note, the metal first has to be cast in the blinding fire. So you sit there in the dark, wondering why it's taking so long, wondering if the universe simply lost your file. But the architect of your life is just working with agonizing, unhurried precision. You don't rush the pouring of a foundation when you are building a skyscraper. You dig deep. You pour tons of heavy concrete into the dark, hidden dirt where nobody will ever see it. You let it cure in the cold silence, because when the storms come, and they always come, the building cannot fall. You are being anchored directly into the bedrock. The urgent message you've been waiting for isn't a loud instruction to run faster. It isn't a map with a bright red X on it. The message is a quiet, painful reshaping of your very nature. The divine is speaking to you through the very obstacles that are currently breaking you down. Every slammed door, every bitter rejection, Every single night spent staring at the ceiling, feeling like you are helplessly falling behind your peers. It is all a deeply intentional, perfectly orchestrated redirection. You are being funneled into a highly specific corridor. You thought you had 100 choices, 100 different comfortable lives you could live, but the invisible hand is gently, firmly closing 99 doors, locking them shut, leaving only one narrow, daunting path ahead. It looks like failure to the outside world. It feels exactly like isolation, but it is actually a masterful, divine setup. Take a slow, deep breath. Let it all the way out. Feel the solid ground beneath your feet. You are still here, despite the terrifying pressure, despite the scraping blade. You haven't broken. This realization brings a strange, quiet peace. You don't have to fight the heavy silence anymore. You don't have to frantically try to decipher every passing cloud, every sudden shadow, or every delayed email. The frantic, electric urgency begins to finally drain out of your tired muscles. You stop trying to kick down the heavy, locked doors. You simply rest your forehead against the cool wood and surrender to the weight. Surrender isn't weakness. It isn't giving up. It is a profound, quiet realization that the river knows exactly where it's going, and thrashing against the current only exhausts you. You let the deep water carry you. The shadows in your room aren't monsters anymore. They are just shadows. The quiet hour of 3 in the morning isn't a torment chamber. It is a sanctuary. It is the 1 hour where the crushing static of the world is completely gone, where the universe leaves you entirely alone so the slow, vital work of your soul can continue uninterrupted. You begin to accept the hollowing out. You begin to realize that the aching emptiness you feel is just space. Vast, echoing space for something magnificent and terrifying to eventually dwell. You look down at your own 2 hands. They are empty, yes, but they're finally open. For years, you walked around with clenched fists. You held so tightly to your own desperate timelines. You gripped your need for immediate answers until your knuckles turned stark white. Now the grip softens. The fingers slowly uncurl. You are ready to receive, not on your frantic human schedule, but on the master clock of the universe. The desperation is replaced by a quiet, steady resolve. You don't need a booming voice anymore. You don't need the sky to tear open and hand you a glowing map, because the compass was installed inside your chest a long time ago. You feel the steady, rhythmic beating of your own heart. It is the only metronome you need right now. It keeps the tempo of your survival, stroke by stroke, beat by beat, in the pitch black. This is exactly where you find your undeniable strength. Not in the triumphant, heavily photographed arrival at the finish line, but in the raw, unglamorous endurance of the long night. You are the deep roots growing silently beneath the frozen winter soil. The surface looks completely dead and barren to anyone walking by. They might look at you with pity. They might whisper behind your back that you've lost your way. Let them whisper. They don't know about the quiet, intense fire burning deep underground. They don't know the absolute density of the wood being forged in this long, brutal season. When the time comes for you to finally break the surface, you will not just bloom, you will completely erupt. But for tonight, just breathe, just exist in the quiet acoustic chamber of your life. Let the master craftsman finish his careful, agonizing work. Stop rushing the blade. Allow yourself the grace to be entirely unfinished. Allow yourself the absolute dignity of being a masterpiece in progress, held securely in the unseen hands of the divine. The dawn is coming. It always does. The light will eventually crest over the horizon, bleeding gold and crimson into the black sky. It will hit the walls of your room. It will warm your tired skin. Until then, stand your watch. Hold your ground. You are exactly where you are meant to be. We talk a lot about isolation on this journey. We talk about the heavy silence and the feeling of wandering the desert entirely alone. But you don't have to carry the brutal weight of it entirely on your own shoulders. That is exactly why I built this quiet corner of the internet, to carve out a grounded sanctuary amidst the screaming noise of the modern world, a place where we can sit in the heavy tension together, acknowledging the brutal, beautiful reality of the path less traveled. The truth is, maintaining this space is a solitary journey of its own. It requires quiet, early mornings and very late nights staring at a blank screen. Putting together these stories takes hours of dedication. If this video brought you peace today, you can buy me a coffee using the Ko-Fi link in the description. Your voluntary support keeps this channel alive. Thank you for listening.